As we kick off the program this evening, it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote. Jacob Brown is a former NFL athlete turned transformational speaker, author and entrepreneur, as co-founder of Varlo, a leading brand in cycling and triathlon apparel. He is a 3-time TEDx speaker and was named one of the 40 under 40 in 2015. His insights have been featured in Forbes, Wall Street Journal, as well as Good Morning America. Top brands like Intel, Carhartt, UPS, General Motors, and even the Dallas Cowboys have been captivated by Jacob's talks. Jacob's mission goes beyond motivation. His fail-forward philosophy has inspired countless individuals worldwide to turn setbacks into strength. Above all, Jacob is a devoted family man, loving husband of 1, and proud father of 4. Took me a couple times to get that one. I'm really glad I didn't flip-flop them, so. Thanks, Jeff. All right, so please join me this evening to welcome Jacob Brown to present Turning Fuel into Failure.
I know a few of you guys are still eating right now, but the rest of you, if you can stand to your feet really quick. You guys can hear me back there? Yes. Perfect. Stand to your feet really quick. I know we've been sitting around, we've been talking a little bit. My arms are a little heavy, so we're gonna start tonight with a power clap. Everybody know what a power clap is? No, I love it. A power clap. On the count of 3, we're going to do one loud, hard, simultaneous clap all together, just one. The first one is practice because usually people start applauding. All right? 1, 2, 3. There we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Keep going. Oh my gosh, thank you guys so much. A standing ovation already? You guys may be seated. You got to let me talk first before you give me a standing ovation. Back in 1946 in Oxford University, there was a freshman that joined the track team. He did not make the first team, he didn't make the second team, and he barely made the third team. His name was Roger Bannister. Show of hands, anybody ever heard of that name, Roger Bannister? A few of you? Has anyone ever ran track competitively in high school or college? Show of hands. Anybody ever run the 400-meter dash? Show of hands. Anybody ever run the mile competitively? Show of hands. The mile? I got somebody in the back. What was your fastest mile, sir? 5:27. You guys give him a hand. That's faster than I can run a mile. I saw someone over here that ran a 400. Someone over here that ran a 400, sir? Right there. What was your fastest 400 meter? 58. Give him a hand. Roger Bannister is famous. For those that don't know, Roger Bannister is the first human being to ever break the 4-minute mile barrier. You see, back in the early 1940s and 50s, the doctors, experts, and physicians said that if you ever tried to run 4 minutes mile, your heart could explode. Your heart could explode. Now, what if I told you if you did 25 push-ups in a row, your heart could explode? Some of you get to 22, 23, no, forget it. You wait till someone else tried it, right? Because you don't want to die. Well, Roger Bannister, being a medical student at Oxford University, understood that he wouldn't die. But here is the problem with Roger Bannister. When he tried out for the track team, he sucked at running. To be quite frank, he was a gangly, long runner, and he was not good at running, so he didn't make the first or second team. He only made the third team, and the only reason why he made the third team is because they needed pace runners for the first and second teams. So for his freshman year, he said, okay, I'll be a pace runner. But for his sophomore year, he stepped on a track to start as a pace runner for the mile race, and he decided, I'm going to finish the race. Now, could you guys imagine? I know some of you love NASCAR in here. Can you imagine if a pace car started the race, didn't drive off, and not just didn't drive off, but won the race? Roger Bannister, as a sophomore, stepped on a track as a pace runner and won the mile race in a time of 4 minutes and 29 seconds. Now the coaches are like, okay, there's something about this kid. Well, years later, Roger Bannister had worked himself up to be one of the best mile racers in the UK. 1953, in May, he said, I'm going to try to break this 4-minute mile record. He steps on a track, he runs lap 1, lap 2, lap 3, lap 4, comes in at a time of 4 minutes and 3 seconds. The world record at this time was 4 minutes and 9 seconds. Now, if you guys remember, if you try to break that 4-minute mile barrier, you might as well call. The 4-minute mile barrier was impossible in human minds. Roger Bannister on that day, he's quoted. He says, you know what, today I fell 3 seconds short. I failed. But the one thing that I realized today was that the 4-minute mile was no longer impossible, but that it was actually possible. May 6, 1954, he steps back on the track. This time, a whole crowd was there to watch him. He runs lap 1, lap 2, lap 3, lap 4. He falls into his coach's arms as he crosses the finish line. And after 3 minutes, the overhead said, new UK record, new European record, new world record, 3 minutes and 59.4 seconds. Roger Bannister on that day did not just break the world record in the mile. Roger Bannister on that day defeated death. Now, after thousands of years of no human being ever even attempting or breaking this 4-minute mile barrier, how in the world did some human being, Roger Bannister, break the 4-minute mile barrier? And it's funny because only 40 days later, the second human being broke the 4-minute mile barrier. 3 weeks later, the third human being broke the 4-minute mile barrier. Today, the 4-minute mile, that's standard for competition. In fact, in 1999, a man from Morocco set the record at 3 minutes and 43 seconds. I couldn't do that on a bike. 3 minutes and 43 seconds? Can you guys imagine the pace you have to run a mile in 3 minutes and 43 seconds? But what was it inside Roger Bannister? What was the passion? What was the fuel that was pushing him to want to break this record and to set the pace for the rest of the world? He wanted to be the first to do something. And I know that someone in here wants to be the first, whether it's in their family, whether it's on their job, whether it's in their business, to do something remarkable in their life. Roger Bannister, being a medical student, he understood he wouldn't die. He knew he wouldn't die. He understood his body. He understood physics. Roger Bannister understood that if he pushed his body to the limits that he knew God allowed him to push them, that he could do things remarkable. He knew he would not fail. So I have a question for you today. How big would you dream if you knew you could not fail? I want you to think about that question through 2025. How big will I dream if I know I can't fail? What are the things that I can do in my life, with my family, with my business, if I know I can't fail? We often allow ourselves to live and operate in that 4-letter F word, fear. I heard some chuckles over there. Fear. Why do we as human beings have fear? Fear of failure, fear of embarrassment. My greatest fear growing up was getting cut from the NFL. Well, that happened, and I'm still standing here. I didn't die. My greatest fear now as a speaker is tripping over this first step as I come up here. Because what happens if I trip on that first step? I'll just stand up and say, hey, fail forward. It's my motto. Right? This year, I want you to ask yourself a question. How big will I dream if I know I can't fail? Every single year, I have a word for the year. Last year, my word for the year was right. Right. And I wrote my first book last year. This year, my word for the year is the word process. Everybody say process. Oh, we can do better than that. Process. The reason why I love the word process, for those English majors in here, process is a noun and it's a verb. Process is a noun and a verb. Every single one of us in here have processes in our life. We wake up, We might read the Bible, we brush our teeth, we eat breakfast, we might comb our hair. Some of us, that's a process, right? Some of you have processes on work, whether it's at work, whether it's a process to move things up the chain. We all have processes. And when we work those processes, at the end of the process, we become or it becomes processed. You guys ever heard of processed foods? Right? A tomato comes out of a field and goes to a processing plant. It goes through a process, and at the end of the process, tomatoes go from tomatoes to ketchup. Some people say salsa, right? Real quick, I was down in Kansas City, and I was telling this part. And I said, tomatoes go from tomatoes to, and this guy on my left, he says, tomatoes? You gotta be kidding me. Tomatoes go through the process in a processing plant. They go from tomatoes to salsa or ketchup. But salsa and ketchup is no longer tomatoes. It's just tomatoes in a new form. In a new form. When we go through processes, we have to become new if we're working that process. One of my favorite processes is the diamond process. The diamond process. Now, I know a lot of you guys have heard this quote before, and being a motivational speaker for over a decade now, I use this quote until I realized that it was completely wrong. Okay, you guys ready? Diamonds are merely coal that did well under pressure. Anybody ever heard that? Diamonds are coal that did well under pressure. Well, I am Mythbusters today. It is not true. Diamonds are actually carbon that was buried 100 miles deep, thousands, if not millions of years ago, whatever you believe. 100 miles deep, 2002 degrees of Fahrenheit heat was applied to that carbon. 725,000 pounds per inch of pressure was applied to that carbon, to which it crystallized. And they look like rock candy or ice cubes. Anybody remember rock candy? Right? Crystallized. Volcanic activity made those diamonds rise to the surface of the earth, to which us human beings could actually extract them. But the last part of the diamond process, after it's buried, after there's fire, after there's pressure, after it rises, is that diamonds have to be cut. Diamonds have to be cut. Before anyone would put a diamond on their finger, because they look ugly before they're cut, they have to be cut. But diamonds, being the hardest natural material on the face of the earth, can only be cut by other diamonds. Did you guys know that? Diamonds can only be cut by other diamonds. Now, Roger Bannister understood that when he stepped back on the track in May 6, 1954, he understood he couldn't do it by himself. So he went and found two diamonds of it for himself, Chris Brasher and Chris Chataway. Everybody say Chris and Chris. Chris Brasher and Chris Chataway were both Olympians. One was an Olympic gold medalist in the steeplechase, and they decided to put their pride aside to help their good friend Roger break the world record, and they became his pace runners. They became his pace runners. Chris Brasher started off in the front to set the pace. He was trying to set a pace of 57 to 58 seconds per lap. He got tired after the second lap and fell off. Chris Chataway runs around the back, tries to finish the race. He gets tired after the third lap and falls off. Roger Bannister's out there on the last lap, runs across, and you guys know the story from there. If you listen to any of Roger Bannister's interviews, he only gives Chris and Chris the credit. He takes no credit for breaking the 4-minute mile barrier, because he understood that if he wanted to do anything remarkable in this life, he had to find two diamonds to cut away the insufficiencies in his life so that he could shine bright. Now, Kay Jewelers and Jared will tell you that diamonds need to be cut to reflect light. You guys have heard that? Diamonds actually need to be cut to show their inner beauty. To show their inner beauty. Listen, in 2025, if you want to do anything remarkable, you can't do it alone. You've got to find diamonds to help cut you. Find those people more experienced. Find those people that are smarter. Find those people that look better than you. They might be in better shape. Hey, we all know. Find those people. They are not your competition. They are actually your diamonds to help you get cut. I want you to look at your neighbor and tell them, I'm your diamond. I'm your diamond. I'm your diamond. In 2025, guys, if you want to be fueled by passion and driven by purpose, you have to find those diamonds that will help push you across that finish line. Last thing I want to leave you with is there's a story that I heard. There was a famous actor that was invited to a party. And he was there to recite Shakespearean literature. And his oratory skills were off the chart. And after the party started to end, a priest stood up and he says, hey, actor, can you recite Psalm 23? And the actor says, of course I can do that. I memorized it as a child. So the actor steps up and he says, the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me by the still waters. He restores my soul. And the crowd just goes crazy. They absolutely loved his rendition. And when the actor was done, he says, hey, priest, it's your turn. And the priest stood up. He says, the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He leads me down the green pastures, leads me by the still waters. He restores my soul. And there was a hush across the whole crowd. And afterwards, someone came up to the actor and they said, you know what? What was the difference between your rendition of Psalm 23 and the priest's rendition of Psalm 23? And the actor says, oh, that's easy. I know the psalm, but he knows the shepherd. In 2025, I challenge you to know the shepherd. Thank you for your time. My name is Jacob Brown. God bless you.